We are finally here today with the bug type shiny hunting locations. It took me a while to get around to this because my throat has really been bothering me lately, but we are finally here with it. As is customary with this type of method, you are going to need to use the level 3 encounter sparkling sandwiches. Would you look at that? What a perfect sandwich. So once you have gotten those 3 buffs, or at least just sparkling an encounter, that's when you are in a position to where you can start hunting. So this first Pokemon is hard to isolate because it constantly comes with another Pokemon. Those Pokemon being Tarantula and Scatterbug. Over here in the Poco Path is one area where you can search for Tarantulas or Scatterbugs. There's nowhere where these two can really isolate by themselves. And because of that, they have a lot of similar spawn locations and hence can't be isolated to one or the other. But this is the first place you can look for them. However, if you don't want to be walking around Poco Path, if you go to Los Platos, and then from Los Platos go directly north into South Province Area 1, this is another place where you should also be able to see quite a number of Tarantula and Scatterbug. Here we see some of them over here, another Scatterbug there. There's also nowhere great where you can really isolate Spidops, unfortunately, for Tarantula if you just want to get the evolution. For Scatterbug, though, there is one place where you can hunt specifically for Vivolon. Up here in the northern area of the map, up at North Province Area 3. You'll just go to this Poké Center here. And once you've made it, you're just going to head straight towards the Team Star base. And right around here, you can find Vivolon spawned. They don't isolate super well if you're too close to the water, but once you start moving further down, you'll start to see more of the Vivolon everywhere. You'll see the occasional Kombi Vespiquen grouping, but mainly what you'll be able to see here are just Vivolons down in this lower area. So yeah, this is a good place to hunt specifically for Vivolon, but if you want Scatterbug or Spupa, you'll have to go to the places I mentioned earlier. Up next, we have Kombi. Kombi can spawn pretty commonly right around Cortando, just in any of the fields. So what I would do for them is just walk through these fields. You will see the occasional Kricketot here and there, but they're not super common inside the fields most of the time. Especially the fields that don't have a bunch of trees. Like if they're similar to this, it's not super uncommon to just find group spawns of Kombi. And while we're here, we might as well talk about Kricketot as well. Kricketot obviously can also spawn here inside the fields, as I showed earlier while trying to talk about the Kombi. But I believe it's just much easier to find specifically Kricketot in like the more outside of the fields if you want to isolate specifically it. But unfortunately, there's no great place for Kricketot, as for whatever reason a whole bunch of other Pokemon will just spawn even with the bug encounter sandwich. So your best bet is to hunt it alongside the Kombis or just try and go for a mass outbreak. The next Pokemon we're going to look at is one of my favorite bug types that they added in this game, and that is Lokix or Nimble specifically. You'll want to teleport to the West Province Area 1 Central Poké Center, and once you're there, you're just kind of want to walk around the main pathway. As you can see, Nimble are just spawning everywhere. Yeah, that's kind of where I would go. Though if you don't want to do this for Nimble, you can use a Dark Sandwich up in this little area right here that doesn't have a name, over by Fury Falls, I guess. You can get pretty common Lokix spawns, but in my opinion, this is much easier as you are only seeing Nimble, and it has a quite noticeable shiny. So yeah, this is where to go for Lokix and Nimble. Up next for Surskit or Masquerain, we're going to go to South Province Area 5. Once you have reached the beachside Poké Center, you're going to want to go back up the wall. Once up, you can, obviously other Pokemon will spawn, but Surskit you can kind of find along these types of ponds right here. Sometimes Masquerain will also spawn down here. There's a group of, just a whole bunch of ponds over in this area, so you can check most of them. but there is a much more consistent spot for Masquerain inside Area 0, and we'll talk about that later on in the video. The next two Pokemon are they both only really spawn in this one place, so we're just going to group them together. That being Venonat and Pineco. And both of these are best found in the Tag Tree Thicket. You can also find Spidops and Tarantula here, but there's just a whole bunch of bug types that spawn in this area, so yeah. Venonat you'll see just walking around, as well as the Spidops that's going to decide to encounter me. Pineco are a little different though than most Pokemon, as they can only appear inside of trees. So if you are wanting to hunt for Pineco, you're going to need to be walking around, looking up at the trees, trying to see if you can find them. Oh, there's a Pineco right there. Another Pineco. They just sit up in the trees randomly. If you don't want to search, if you are okay with searching for Fortress though, you're going to want to teleport to Casoria Lake and come up to the Sakurat Trail. Walking around this Sakurat Trail, you can find plenty of Fortress just along the water base. The next Pokemon on our list is Scyther. Pretty much at any of the land masses at the Casoria Lake, you'll be able to find Scyther just walking around. I had teleported over to this island, but you can find him like along the land here, as well as on these little islands over here. As you can see, they spawn pretty plentifully, and I think the only other Pokemon that spawns in this area is Venomoth occasionally, but I have not seen too many of them in my testing, and pretty much have only been seeing Scythers. See, there's a Venomoth there, but the Scyther much outnumber the Venomoth. I mentioned it earlier, but you can find Fortress in the Sakurat Trail along the water base, as well as a couple other bug types, those being Heracross, as well as Spidops. I mentioned earlier that Spidops doesn't have any great place to isolate him, but he spawns in many different places, so you might just find one along the way of looking for one of these other shinies. Though for both Fortress and Heracross, you will have much better luck going with their alternate typings. Going for Steel with a Fortress or fighting with Heracross, as there are not as many Pokemon of those types that spawn in this area. Now this is seeming to be quite a theme for this video, but we have another set of two Pokemon that spawn in this area. Those being Rellor and Larvesta in the Asado Desert. You can see some Larvesta here. If you go kind of west from the Watchtower, that's what it's called, you'll see a bunch of Larvesta standing out in the open for you to look for. This is going west, that was east. If you go this direction, you'll start to see Rellor spawning everywhere. This is a good place to hunt both the Pokemon because they're very close together shiny hunting locations. And oh, there he is. There's a shiny Rellor. Let's go ahead and save. This is one that I actually wanted. I didn't find one while I was searching during my research phase for this video, but look at him. Look at that little ball that he got. But yeah, this is the best place to hunt for Rellor and Larvesta. Both the Pokemon don't have a whole lot of competition in these areas, but you will occasionally see the opposite Pokemon spawn. Like, as you could see in the background, there was a Larvesta while we were walking towards this Rellor. And occasionally in the Larvesta areas, you will see one Rellor every now and again. The final of the bug types that I'm covering that do not spawn in Area 0 is Snom. For Snom, you're going to want to teleport to the Glisado Gym. From the Glisado Gym, the best place I found to go for Snom is southwest of the Poke Center. And it's just kind of the general southwestern part of the mountain. So kind of in this area, you can find Snom pretty easily. As you can see here, there's a couple Snom. If you go too close to the mountainous areas, you will find low kicks as well. So you need to make sure you stay on the actual ice mountain, snow mountain itself. That way you are only seeing Snom if that is who you want to isolate. Snom though is another Pokemon that you can find the evolution of in Area 0. being Frostmoth. Speaking of Area 0, let's go ahead and go check it out and look at the Pokemon you can find there. From this main starting place up in the grassy areas, there are 3 different bugs you'll be able to find. Those being Frostmoth, Slitherwing, the Paradox Pokemon form of Volcarona, and Venomoth. All 3 of these Pokemon are isolated a little bit better if you use their secondary typing, Frostmoth being Ice, Venomoth being Poison, and Slitherwing being Fighting. Venomoth works really well up here as well if you are Pokemon Scarlet, because then you don't have to worry about any of the Iron Moth getting in your way. Frostmoth is a similar story if you're in Scarlet. Ice works really well because you do not have to worry about any of the iron bundles interrupting your hunt. Slitherwing, you're going to want to use a fighting sandwich for, as that will give you much better results, because you see there are 3 different bug types that spawn in this area. But with fighting types, the only other ones you will find most of the time are Metatite and Metacham in horde spawns. I mentioned it earlier, but Masquerain is another Pokemon that you can find pretty commonly in Area 0, just in certain points. Oh yeah, I guess also Lowkicks. I wasn't thinking about that, but in the mountainous areas with a bug sandwich of this, you can find a lot of Lowkicks. This is from Area 2, or the second research station, I believe. So this is just a secondary spot to hunt it if you want. But for Masquerain, you're going to want to head towards really any of the waterfall type areas. I'm going to this one just because it has a lot of space, but you can go to any of the waterfalls inside of Area 0 for it. Once you are at the waterfall, you'll see pretty much only Masquerain spawning, since they're the water bug Pokemon. You know, it makes sense that they'd be the only thing that spawns. So yeah, there we go. Masquerains kind of just spawn everywhere. Unfortunately, you can't use Picnic in this area to reset your spawn, so you'll have to manually run away from the Pokemon and reset the spawns by walking in and out of their distance, you know, type of thing. But yeah, that covers every single bug type Pokemon, the best shiny hunting location I have found for them in this game. If you found a better location, you can let me know down in the comments, as well as what type of Pokemon you'd like to see me do next. I have already done a video covering the normal type Pokemon locations, and there are a whole lot of those, so you might want to go check out that video, which is on screen now. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Peace!